What are you even doing here? You weren't welcome yesterday. Her words cut through the wedding reception like a shard of glass, sharp and humiliating. Every guest turned, their eyes fixed on me as though I had trespassed on holy ground. I forced a smile at my son's new bride, the woman I had poured nearly $45,000 into pleasing. I'll go, I said softly, but first, meet a familiar face. An old friend of yours. When Lena's gaze landed on the man standing behind me, the color drained from her cheeks. Her designer gown suddenly looked like a burial shroud as she collapsed onto the polished marble floor. Before we go on, if you're watching this, don't forget to subscribe and tell me where you're tuning in from. You're probably wondering how a 68-year-old grandmother became the mastermind of the most shocking wedding scandal that ever hit Savannah. Let me explain. It all began half a year earlier, when my only son, Daniel, walked into my home with the most enchanting liar I had ever encountered. But before I get ahead of myself, my name is Eleanor Reed, though most people call me Ellie. And until just days ago, I believed I was arranging the wedding of the century for my beloved child. I had emptied out the last of my husband's insurance payout, sold off bonds, and even taken a loan against my house, all to give Daniel and Lena the fairy tale celebration she insisted she had dreamed of since childhood. The venue was the prestigious Whitmore Estate, a place known for its sprawling gardens and southern charm. The gown, a $13,000 Vera gown, required multiple fittings. The flowers, 2,000 pristine roses flown in from Colombia. Every last bloom was paid for by me. Lena had wept as she confided that her family had disowned her for marrying beneath their standards. My heart broke for this poor girl who seemed to sacrifice everything for love. I even offered her my grandmother's sapphire brooch, a family treasure handed down for generations. "Oh, Mrs. Reed," she had whispered, eyes shimmering as if with gratitude, "you're like the mother I always wished I had." What an actress she was. Daniel was spellbound, and I could understand why. Lena was radiant, with hair like spun gold and eyes so wide and innocent they could disarm the most guarded soul. She worked as a pediatric nurse, volunteered at shelters, and spoke about children with such raw sincerity that I even caught myself daydreaming of holding grandchildren someday. But something in her didn't quite sit right. Maybe it was how her stories never lined up, or how she claimed to have grown up in half a dozen towns but couldn't keep the details straight. Maybe it was her insistence on paying cash for everything, dismissing credit cards as untrustworthy. Still, Daniel was happier than I'd seen him since his father's passing 3 years earlier. That alone was enough for me, until the night the truth revealed itself, shattering everything. It happened by accident, as the most ruinous truths often do. I was dropping off wedding favors at Daniel's apartment when I heard Lena's voice through the cracked bedroom door. Her tone was low, clipped, urgent. I froze in the hallway, holding my breath. "Victor, I told you not to call this number," she hissed. "Yes, the wedding's still on. I'll have access to his accounts once we're married." "What do you mean you want more?" "We agreed on 30%. The blood in my veins turned to ice. "Listen," she continued, her voice sharp. "The old woman already gave us over 40 grand. She'll probably hand over more for a house down payment after the ceremony. This Mark is worth at least 200,000. No, he doesn't suspect a thing. He's hooked." "A Mark." "My son, her Mark." I staggered back, pressing myself to the wall, my hands trembling so badly I nearly dropped the box I carried. Somehow, I slipped out quietly, but 3 blocks away I had to stop the car, gasping for air. Suddenly, everything made cruel sense: the cash, the fractured stories, the way she had subtly pulled Daniel away from his friends. She had even persuaded him to put her on his bank account for convenience, and to increase his life insurance because they were building a future together. I wept in the car, grief and rage consuming me, until something hardened inside. The same resolve I'd felt years ago when I fought for my husband during his battle with cancer. If Lena Carter thought she could prey on my family, she had chosen the wrong mother to deceive. But I needed evidence, undeniable proof that would tear the veil from Daniel's eyes. That night I did something I never imagined I'd do. I opened my laptop and typed, Private Investigators, Savannah, Georgia. By morning, I was sitting across from Clara Jennings, a retired detective turned private investigator, known for uncovering fraud schemes. She was younger than me but carried an air of authority that settled my nerves. "Mrs. Reed," she said after hearing my story, "this sounds like a textbook marriage scam. They're professionals. They study their targets, mold themselves into whatever their victims long for, then strip them of everything." I slid a check across the table. "How long will it take?" Clara gave a grim smile. "If she's reckless enough to use her real voice on the phone, not long." 2 weeks later, Clara called. Her tone was grave. "Eleanor, sit down. What I found is worse than you think. Lena Carter doesn't exist. Her real name is Natalie Ross." I was in my kitchen making tea when she spoke, and my knees nearly buckled. "Tell me everything," I whispered. "Natalie Ross. 29. Originally from Orlando. 3 arrests in the past 5 years, all related to fraud. Only one conviction stuck. She works with male partners who help her research victims and sometimes pose as relatives. The man on the phone, Victor Silva. Her most frequent partner. They were romantically involved until 2 years ago when she conned him out of 15 grand and disappeared. He's been searching for her ever since. My kettle screamed on the stove, but I couldn't move. "How did you uncover all this?" "Facial recognition, old case files, and legwork. She's been living as Lena Carter for 8 months, complete with forged documents and fabricated job history. The pediatric nurse story is partly true. She does occasional volunteer shifts at a free clinic, just enough to make her cover believable." I sank into a chair, my mind racing. "Clara, I need you to find Victor Silva." There was silence. "Eleanor, what are you planning?" "I think a man she betrayed might be very interested in attending her wedding." Clara exhaled, almost impressed. "You want to confront her with him?" "I want Lena to face the justice she deserves," I said firmly, though my stomach churned. "Can you locate him?" "Already did. He's in Atlanta now, working construction. I can send you his information within the hour." After the call, I sat motionless in my kitchen. Part of me longed to run to Daniel with the truth. But I knew my son. Stubborn, like his father. Natalie had been weaving her web for months, and by now she had surely painted me as jealous or controlling. I couldn't risk losing him by confronting her too soon. No, quiet confrontation wouldn't be enough. I needed something devastating, something undeniable that would strip her mask in front of everyone and leave no room for manipulation. The wedding was just 10 days away, and I intended to make sure it was unforgettable, for all the right reasons. That very afternoon, I dialed Victor Silva. Victor Silva speaking. His voice was wary, clipped. I had caught him during his lunch break at a dusty construction site outside Atlanta. "Mr. Silva," I said calmly, "my name is Eleanor Reed. I believe you once knew my son's fiancée, though you knew her as Natalie Ross, not Lena Carter." The line went silent, so long I wondered if he had hung up. Then came a sharp question. "Where is she?" "She's about to marry my son here in Savannah, in 9 days. She's already drained us of over $40,000, and she's just getting started." I kept my tone level, steady. "I think we can help each other." A pause, then a note of bitterness. "Lady, I don't know who you are or what game you're playing, but she told me once that her mark was worth at least 200 grand. She's planning to get access to your boy's accounts right after the wedding, then vanish within 6 months." I let his words hang in the air. Sound familiar? His sharp intake of breath answered for him. You heard her talking to me?" "Yes," I said. "And I understood everything. You were her partner until she betrayed you." He exhaled, his voice hardening. "That's right. Left me flat, took 15,000, and ran off in the middle of the night. Stuck me with the bill for a hotel and a rental car. I've been chasing her ghost ever since. Then you understand my position, I replied. There was silence. Then, what exactly are you proposing, Mrs. Reed? I had been shaping the plan in my head for days, fitting the pieces together until it gleamed like a weapon. She's having a grand church wedding. 300 guests. Prestigious, public. What if her past came walking right down the aisle in the middle of her moment of triumph? You want me to crash the wedding, he said slowly, a trace of admiration lacing his tone. I want her exposed. I want my son to see her for what she is, before she ruins his life. Victor went quiet for a long time. When he spoke again, his voice carried steel. She owes me more than money. She took years of my life. Maybe this is how I finally get closure. Then this is your chance, I said. What's in it for you? Besides saving your boy, I mean. I allowed myself a small, humorless smile. Justice, Mr. Silva. That's all I want. Justice. We stayed on the phone another 20 minutes, mapping out every detail. Victor would drive down on the morning of the wedding and wait for my signal. By then, Lena had already convinced Daniel that I was trying to sabotage them, and I'd been formally uninvited. But I had my own ways into the Whitmore estate, ways that didn't involve the front gates. When we hung up, I felt lighter than I had in months. The helpless rage that had been suffocating me was gone, replaced by something far sharper, purpose. The following days passed in a whirlwind of quiet preparation. I cancelled my hair appointment. Called off the dress alterations. Why should I bother dressing up for a wedding I wasn't wanted at? Instead, I focused on my real plan, making sure Lena's perfect day unraveled thread by thread. 3 days before the ceremony, I began making phone calls that would have impressed even the most ruthless corporate raider. First, I phoned the Whitmore Estates event coordinator. Mrs. Sullivan? This is Eleanor Reed, mother of the groom for the Reed-Carter wedding this Saturday. Oh, Mrs. Reed, wonderful to hear from you. Excited for the big day? If only she knew. Actually, I said warmly, there's been a change. The bride's family has decided to handle the final payments after all. Isn't that heartwarming? Families reconciling. Her tone brightened instantly. That's wonderful. So I should expect a payment directly from them? Yes, I said smoothly. In fact, don't process anything from my account. You'll hear from the Carter family. I gave her the number Clara had confirmed as one of Natalie's fake vendor contacts. They're particular about handling their own finances. One call down. Then another, to the florist. Then the caterer. Then the photographer. Each conversation went the same. The bride's family was paying. They were thrilled to be back in her life, honored to contribute. Of course, no such family existed. By Saturday morning, the vendors would be clamoring for payments from ghosts, and the Whitmore estate would be in chaos. But the true jewel in my crown was the call I made to Daniel. Mom, he answered, sounding tired, I can't talk long. Lena's upset about you missing the rehearsal dinner. I understand, sweetheart, I said, letting my voice wrap around him with the same warmth I'd soothed him with since boyhood. And I've been reflecting. Maybe I was too forceful about the wedding details. There was silence, then surprise. Really? Yes, I said gently. This is her day. If my presence would upset her, then I should respect that. I love you too much to do otherwise. His voice wavered. Mom, are you sure? Maybe if you talk to her. Oh, darling, that isn't necessary. You two should enjoy your day without any tension. I think I'll take a little trip this weekend. Perhaps drive up to Charleston, browse some antique shops. Give you both space. His sigh of relief cut me like a knife. That means a lot, Mom. Thank you. That's all I've ever wanted, sweetheart, I whispered. For you to be happy. When the call ended, I sat staring at the phone, aching. My son truly believed I was the problem. That my doubts came from jealousy or selfishness, not instinct. But by Sunday, he would understand. Friday evening, Lena herself called me. I almost let it ring, but curiosity got the better of me. Mrs. Reed? It's Lena. Her voice was sticky sweet, laced with false vulnerability. I just wanted to thank you for being so understanding. I know it can't have been easy. Not at all, dear, I said, matching her syrupy tone. Every bride should feel at ease on her special day. You're so gracious. Daniel said you were taking a little trip for the weekend? She was fishing. That's right. A small getaway while you two begin your honeymoon. Well, I hope you enjoy yourself. And after we're settled, maybe we could have lunch? I'd really like for us to be friends. The audacity of her suggestion nearly made me laugh. That sounds wonderful, Lena, I said instead. I'm sure we'll have so much to talk about. After ending the call, I poured a glass of wine and raised it to my reflection in the dark window. To family, I murmured. May they all reap exactly what they've sown. Saturday dawned gray and damp, the kind of weather photographers call romantic and brides call disastrous. I woke at 5, too restless to sleep, and dressed in a plain black dress, my grandmother's sapphire brooch pinned at my collar, the very jewel Lena had once admired with greedy eyes. At 9, my phone buzzed. I'm here, Victor said. His voice was steady, but there was tension underneath. You sure about this, Mrs. Reed? I studied myself in the hallway mirror, unrecognizable but resolute. I've never been surer of anything. And if your son doesn't forgive you? It was the question I had been avoiding for days. Then at least I'll know I saved him from a woman who would have gutted him, financially and emotionally, I said firmly. Sometimes being a mother means playing the villain in your child's story until they're ready to face the truth. Victor gave a low whistle. Damn. You're tougher than you sound. I almost smiled. Mr. Silva, I raised a son, buried a husband, and survived 68 years in the South. I'm tougher than I look, too. The ceremony was set for 2 o'clock, with the reception immediately afterward in the Whitmore Estates Grand Ballroom. I'd timed everything to the minute. Victor would arrive at 1:30 and stay in his car until I gave him the signal. I would slip in through the side garden entrance, a path I knew well from my endless venue tours, and watch from the shadows until the moment was right. By 11 o'clock that morning, the first cracks appeared. My phone lit up, first the florist, then the caterer, then the coordinator from the estate. All of them frantic, desperate to reach someone from the Carter family about outstanding balances that suddenly needed immediate resolution. I let every call roll straight to voicemail. By noon, Daniel called me. Mom, something strange is going on, he said, frazzled. All the vendors are calling Lena about payments, but she swears she never told them her family was paying. Do you know anything about this? Oh my goodness, I said with just the right touch of confusion. That does sound odd. What did Lena say? She's upset. She thinks someone is deliberately trying to ruin the wedding. He hesitated. Mom, you didn't. I mean, you wouldn't. Daniel Reed, I said, letting my voice sharpen with wounded dignity. Are you accusing your own mother of sabotaging your wedding? After everything I've done to give you this day? No, I'm sorry, he said quickly. Lena's so stressed. And when people are stressed, they look for someone to blame. I softened my voice again, careful not to push too hard. Don't worry, sweetheart. It's probably just a mix-up with the vendors. These things happen. The important part is that you're marrying the woman you love today. If only he knew how true that statement was about to become. After we hung up, I checked my watch. 1 o'clock. Time to get into place for the performance of a lifetime. I grabbed my purse, drew a deep breath, and headed out. The drive to the Whitmore estate took only 15 minutes, winding through Savannah's historic streets, where ancient oaks draped in Spanish moss arched overhead like ghostly veils. A pang of sadness struck me then, that this stunning venue would forever carry the stench of betrayal instead of joy. But Natalie Ross had chosen her path, and now she was going to meet her reckoning. I parked 2 blocks away and entered through the back service gate near the catering kitchens. The staff were too overwhelmed with the payment crises to notice another woman in a plain black dress carrying flowers. By 2:15, I was hidden behind a marble column at the rear of the chapel, my eyes fixed on Daniel, who stood glowing with anticipation at the altar. In 15 minutes, his joy would be obliterated, and I would be the one to swing the hammer. But sometimes, I reminded myself as the wedding march swelled, a mother must be strong enough to shatter her child's heart in order to save his life. The chapel doors swung open. Natalie Ross, still playing the role of Lena Carter for the last time, floated down the aisle in her $13,000 gown, my grandmother's sapphire pinned to her chest. I pulled out my phone. 1 word. 1 text. Now. Victor Silva entered the chapel like an executioner in a wrinkled suit. Heads whipped around as he strode up the aisle with the steady confidence of a man who had been hunting his quarry for years. Natalie's bouquet slipped from her hands, scattering white roses across the marble floor like shards of glass. Natalie Ross, Victor thundered, his voice echoing through the silence. Did you really think you could hide forever? The chaos that followed was everything I had envisioned, and worse. Daniel instinctively stepped in front of his bride, confusion twisting his features. Sir, I think you've mistaken her for someone else. This is Lena Carter. Victor let out a dark, humorless laugh. Lena Carter? Is that her name this time? He reached into his jacket and pulled out a worn manila folder. Her real name is Natalie Ross. She's a professional con artist. I would know. I was her partner until she stole 15 grand from me and vanished. That's not true. Natalie shrieked, her voice sharp and panicked. Daniel, I don't know this man. He's deranged. But I could see it, the cracked spiderwebbing across her mask. Her hands trembled, her carefully sweet voice fractured into something harsh and brittle. Victor flipped open the folder, holding up photographs for the guests to see. Here's Natalie at the Ritz in Miami, running a credit card scam on elderly tourists. Here she is in Birmingham, pretending to be a cancer patient while pocketing church donations. And here's my favorite, Natalie leaving our hotel in Memphis with my wallet, my watch, and the engagement ring I was stupid enough to buy her. Daniel's face drained of color. Lena, what is he talking about? He's lying. Natalie's voice cracked. You know me, Daniel. We're in love. We're about to be married. I love you. Love? Victor barked a bitter laugh. You wouldn't know love if it spat in your face. Want to know what she really thinks of your precious Daniel? He lifted his phone high. I've got recordings from our partnership. Hear how she referred to him. Her pathetic mama's boy Mark. Gasps rippled through the chapel. Guests murmured, the low buzz of shock swelling into a tide. I pressed against the column, my nails digging into the stone, as I watched my son's heart splinter in real time. But Natalie wasn't finished. She rallied, her voice softening into that familiar, sugary plea. Even if any of that were true, people can change. I've changed. Daniel, you believe in second chances, don't you? You always said everyone deserves forgiveness. Please. It was masterful, a manipulation meant to strike directly at my son's goodness. But Victor wasn't out of ammunition. Second chances? His smile was cold. Then tell him about the other man you're conning right now, Natalie. Daniel's eyes narrowed, doubt creeping in. What's he talking about, Lena? I have no idea, she snapped too quickly, too defensively. Victor checked his phone. 3 weeks ago, you called me. You bragged about the lonely old woman who'd already handed you $40,000. Ring any bells? The silence was deafening. All eyes locked on her. I gripped the column so hard my knuckles ached, watching my son's face shift as the truth dawned. Natalie's voice broke. That's taken out of context. Context? Daniel whispered, his voice trembling with fury. You called my mother a lonely old woman? No! Daniel, I didn't mean it like that. He's twisting everything. Twisting? Daniel's voice rose, anger sharpening it. My mother gave up everything for this wedding. She sacrificed her savings, even borrowed against her home. And you, his words cut off, fury boiling in his silence. Guests were no longer murmuring. They were riveted. Phones were raised, recording, live streaming the unraveling of the bride. Victor's voice dropped like a blade. And the worst part? She was planning to empty your accounts and disappear within 6 months. That's her standard game. Long enough to claim half your assets. Short enough to never get attached. Stop it! Natalie sobbed, her composure shattering at last, tears streaming down her face. Whether her tears were genuine or just another layer of her performance, I couldn't tell. But Daniel could. He stepped back from her, his expression twisted with disgust and betrayal. Is it true? Any of it? He demanded. Natalie's eyes darted wildly around the chapel like a trapped animal searching for escape. Guests crowded the doors, blocking any path to freedom. The altar offered no refuge. Then her gaze locked onto mine. Recognition flickered across her face, sharp and unmistakable. She knew. She knew exactly who had set the stage, who had pulled every string. You, she whispered, pointing straight at me. Gasps rippled through the crowd as every head swiveled toward me. So much for staying hidden until the finale. Daniel's eyes widened. Mom? You said you were in Charleston. I stepped up from behind the column, straightened my sapphire brooch with deliberate dignity, and lifted my chin. I lied, sweetheart. Something I picked up from watching the experts. You orchestrated this, Daniel said, his voice a storm of horror and reluctant admiration. I exposed it, I corrected coolly. There's a difference. Natalie's voice sharpened as she found her footing again. She's jealous, Daniel. Your mother couldn't stand that you chose me. She hired this man to destroy our wedding because she can't let go of control. She wants to run your life forever. It was clever, playing on every tired stereotype of the controlling mother-in-law. And for a moment, I saw doubt flicker in my son's eyes. 29 years of her polished manipulation versus 68 years of my devotion and sacrifice. Which would he believe? That's when Victor stepped forward. Don't flatter yourself, he snapped. Mrs. Reed didn't hire me. I came here on my own. He lifted his phone. Want to hear what you said to me 3 weeks ago? The one where you laughed about how easy it is to bleed desperate women and their sons dry? He pressed play. The audio was grainy, but her voice was unmistakable. The old hag is so desperate for grandkids, she'll buy whatever story I feed her. And the son, classic mama's boy. All I have to do is shed a tear over my tragic childhood, and he writes me another check. Daniel's face drained to chalk white, then flushed crimson, then faded into a sickly gray that twisted my stomach. I wanted to run to him, to shield him from the blow. But this was no longer about protection. This was about truth. Natalie's recorded voice droned on, she even gave me her grandmother's heirloom. Said it had been in her family for generations. I'll pawn it the minute the honeymoon's over. Almost in unison, Daniel's eyes dropped to the necklace gleaming at Natalie's throat, my grandmother's sapphire brooch, shining like stolen fire against her skin. Her hands flew to her chest as if she could hide it. Daniel, I can explain. Explain what? His voice was icy, terrifyingly calm. Explain how you mocked my mother while draining her savings? Explain how you called me a mama's boy while pretending you loved me? Or explain how you planned to disappear with our money? Natalie's shoulders slumped. For the first time since she'd slithered into our lives, the mask slipped completely. She looked older, smaller, ordinary. It started as a job, she admitted, her voice hollow. Just another mark. But then, I thought maybe I could make it real. Even if I had to lie. Daniel's voice broke. Your name. Your job. Your family. Your entire life. What exactly was supposed to be real between us? Natalie's eyes swept the chapel, the hundreds of guests watching with morbid fascination, the lavish flowers, the photographer capturing every second, the videographer immortalizing her downfall. I need to leave, she whispered. Yes, Daniel said flatly. You do. She gathered her dress, but before leaving, she turned back to me with a look of venom so sharp I felt it pierce my chest. You think you've won? Congratulations, Mrs. Reed. You've got your precious son back. But he'll never trust another woman again. You've ruined him for love forever, just so you could stay the most important woman in his life. Her words hit like a blade. For a split second, I wondered if she was right, if my hunger for justice had crossed into something selfish. But Daniel's voice rose, strong and clear. No. She didn't ruin me. You did. And the difference is simple, my mother tried to protect me. You tried to destroy me. Natalie's face twisted with rage. You'll regret this. Both of you. I have friends. Connections. This isn't over. Victor's smirk was almost amused. Actually, it is. While you've been acting your little part, the FBI has been reviewing our conversation about your ongoing scams. They're especially interested in your fake social security number and forged job history. Natalie's face drained of color. You wouldn't. Already did, Victor said flatly. They'll be here any second. He glanced at his watch. In fact, they're late. And then, as if on cue, two men in dark suits strode through the chapel doors. Their movements were precise, authoritative. Natalie Ross, the taller one said, flashing a badge. FBI. You're under arrest for fraud, identity theft, and multiple counts of bank fraud. The scene that followed was surreal. Federal agents reciting Miranda rights in a chapel dripping with roses and candlelight. Wedding guests fumbling for their phones, eager to film history. A bride in a $13,000 gown led away in handcuffs. Natalie did not go quietly. This is harassment. I haven't done anything wrong. You'll hear from my lawyers, she screamed, twisting against their grip. But her shrill protests were drowned out by the chorus of phone cameras clicking, videos streaming, messages flying across social media. By nightfall, hashtags like #WeddingScam and #Conbride would flood every corner of the internet. When the agents finally escorted her out, silence fell heavy over the chapel. 300 guests sat frozen, torn between pity and disbelief, unsure whether to leave or offer condolences. The minister still stood stiffly at the altar, looking as though he'd never trained for anything close to this. Daniel remained rooted at the front, his tuxedo still perfect, his life shattered. He stared at the chapel doors long after they closed. I longed to run to him, to hold him, but something stopped me. This was his moment. His grief. His truth to wrestle with. Finally, he turned to the stunned congregation. His voice carried clearly across the silent room. Well, he said dryly. This is awkward. A few nervous laughs broke through the tension. I just want to thank you all for coming today. I know this isn't what you expected to be doing with your Saturday, Daniel said at last, raking a hand through his hair. The wedding is obviously cancelled. But the reception's already paid for. So, if anyone wants dinner and an open bar, please, help yourselves. God knows I need a drink. This time, the laughter was real. Guests shifted in their seats, stretching, murmuring in clusters as the tension began to ebb into awkward relief. Across the chapel, Daniel's eyes found mine. I saw gratitude there, yes, but also shame, and even something close to admiration. He walked toward me slowly, and the crowd parted around him as if choreographed. When he stopped in front of me, he simply studied my face for a long moment before speaking. "Mom," he said finally. "We need to talk." "I know," I answered softly. But instead of launching into accusations, he reached for my sapphire brooch, unclasping it from Natalie's neck. His hands trembled as he placed it back in mine. "These belong to you." The weight of it in my palm was familiar, grounding. "Actually," I said, my voice unsteady, "they belong to the woman my son truly marries. When he finds someone worthy of them." Daniel's eyes filled with tears. "I'm so sorry, Mom. For doubting you. For choosing her lies over you. For being such a fool." "You weren't a fool," I said, adjusting his tie the way I'd done since his first school dance. "You were in love. Or at least you loved who you thought she was. Love makes us vulnerable. That's not weakness, it's human. What matters is you're safe." He swallowed. "How long did you know?" "I started suspecting about a month ago. I had proof 2 weeks back." I met his gaze. "I hired a private investigator." "And Victor?" "He volunteered the moment I told him where she was." A faint smile tugged at my lips. Hell hath no fury like a con artist scorned, apparently. Daniel laughed, a fragile sound but genuine. "You've been busy, haven't you?" "I've had an education," I admitted. I slipped my arm through his. "Now, shall we go face your non-reception? People are going to want answers." As we walked down the aisle together, I overheard fragments of conversation. Shock. Sympathy. And, to my surprise, respect, murmurs about my detective work making the rounds. Mrs. Henderson, our neighbor, caught my arm. "Eleanor Reed, you're one sharp woman. I never trusted that girl. Too sweet. Real women have edges." The reception that followed was unlike any gathering I'd attended. With the illusion of a perfect wedding shattered, people shed their formal masks. The bar opened early. The band abandoned wedding staples for blues riffs. Guests talked openly, honestly, as if the shared spectacle had stripped away their pretenses. Daniel handled it with more grace than I could have hoped. He moved among the guests like a diplomat, thanking them for coming, apologizing for the chaos, accepting sympathy with humor. I watched him from across the room, pride swelling. Not for his career, or for the ceremony I'd planned, but for his resilience. My son was standing tall in the wreckage. Victor Silva approached me by the dessert table, where I debated whether it was acceptable to eat wedding cake when no wedding had taken place. "Mrs. Reed," he said, extending his hand. "Thank you for letting me face her. After all these years." I shook his hand firmly. "I should thank you. I couldn't have exposed her without your help." "What you did took guts," Victor said. "Most mothers would have begged their sons to see reason. You played chess while the rest of us played checkers." His words lingered after he left. Exhaustion crept in, the adrenaline finally draining. For the first time all day, sadness seeped through. I'd saved Daniel from ruin, yes, but at what cost to his belief in love? "Mom." Daniel appeared beside me, handing me a glass of champagne. "You look like you're second-guessing yourself." I accepted it gratefully. "Just wondering if there might have been a kinder way." "You mean like sitting me down and telling me my fiancé was a fraud?" He arched a brow. We both know I wouldn't have listened. I would have accused you of jealousy, just like she said. He wasn't wrong. You know what really convinced me? Daniel said, taking a slow sip. It wasn't the photos. Or even the recording. It was her face. When she realized you'd beaten her. For 1 second, all the sweetness vanished. I saw what she really was. Cold. Calculating. And I knew you'd been right all along. I blinked back tears. I'm not sure it was smarts, Daniel. Maybe just motivation. He smiled faintly. No, Mom. You orchestrated the takedown of a professional con artist using her own ex and the FBI. That wasn't just instinct. That was strategy. We stood together in silence, watching guests laugh, drink, and even dance as the band swung into jazz. Out of ruin, something alive and real had bloomed. Daniel broke the quiet. I have a confession. What is it? Part of me is relieved. Not about the mess. But because something always felt off with her. I ignored it, thought it was stress. But sometimes, when she slipped, she looked at me like she was trying to remember who she was supposed to be. Why didn't you tell me? I asked softly. Because I thought love was supposed to feel that way, he admitted. And because I was 32, and had never been in love before. I didn't want to lose it. Oh, sweetheart. My heart ached. That doesn't make you pathetic. It makes you human. And wanting love is never foolish, even when we put it in the wrong hands. He squeezed my hand. Thank you, Mom. For seeing through her. For protecting me. For making sure I couldn't ignore the truth. You're welcome, I said, smiling. But next time, introduce me a little earlier. He chuckled. Next time, I'm running a background check first. Maybe that's a little extreme. Not after today. He grinned. Besides, I've learned something important about the women in my life. Oh. Never underestimate a read woman. Turns out, you're far more dangerous than you look. I laughed, lighter than I had in months. Your grandmother would have been proud. She loved a good fight. Daniel raised his glass. Here's to justice, served ice cold, with a side of humiliation. I lifted mine to meet his. Here's to family. And to knowing when to fight for the people you love. The glasses clinked, a soft chime echoing louder in my heart than any wedding bells could have. Despite the lies, the betrayal, the spectacle, I was exactly where I belonged, beside my son, safe, free, and finally seeing the truth. Sometimes, the best weddings are the ones that never take place. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to subscribe, and share your own story in the comments. Your voice matters.